Okay, here we go. Corporate media, they're talking about something. They're talking about money and politics, our favorite thing. So BSD&C, our fantastic friends there, are discussing a New York Times article on Israel secretly targeting U.S. lawmakers with influencing their campaigns on the war in Gaza. So goodness gracious, what is going on here? First of all, let's give a mandatory shout out and mandatory thumbs up to good friend of the show, Case Study QB. It's been a while since we've seen him, but he found this clip from BSD&C and Case Study. I don't know how you sit through it, but you're made out of stronger stuff than me.
Turns out it isn't just our enemies unleashing influence campaigns on U.S. public opinion, but
wait a minute. Hold on. No one should be influencing our politicians, our enemies and our allies. No one should be buying our politicians.
Apparently, our allies as well. The New York Times is reporting that Israel organized and paid for an influence campaign last year that targeted U.S. lawmakers with pro-Israel messaging, using hundreds of fake accounts that posed as real Americans on the app formerly known as Twitter, as well as on Facebook and Instagram to post pro-Israel comments about the war. The campaign was commissioned by an Israeli government body that allocated about $2 million to the operation beginning last October. The accounts focused on U.S. lawmakers who are Black and Democratic, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Raphael Warnock.
Hey, look, see, bipartisanship. Democrats and Republicans can equally be bought by anybody. Our politicians are cheaper than sex workers. Now, see, that's not fair. I shouldn't compare sex workers to politicians. At least they have more integrity than our politicians. So you know what? Our politicians are just cheap. They're lower than dirt.
Georgia, with posts urging them to continue funding Israel's military. Seems like the political marketing firm that carried this out knew that young Black Americans are some of the biggest and loudest opponents of the war. Though it's not clear.
So in other words, buy a Black politician and it'll tell other Black voters to shut up. That's what that lobby group's hoping for. Buying Black politicians to tell Black voters to shut up and vote Democrat. It's the truth of it. These lobby groups, they don't view average citizens with respect. They don't view voters with respect. Because remember, corporate donors always are ahead of the line amongst the voters. See, the donors have the final say. The voters are the ones who always dictate how policy is going to be written. You, the voter, don't have a say.
Clear why they thought politicians could change their minds more than the actual images on their phones. The Times also reports that this operation is the first documented case of the Israeli government organizing a campaign to influence the U.S. government. But get this, the other countries that are believed to back similar influence campaigns like these are the United States, as well as Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Why are all these countries able to do this kind of action? It's almost like we are purposely leading ourselves to destruction. By the way, the United States, we open up the door. No, better yet, we didn't open up the door. Our Supreme Court blew up the door, blew up the building by saying, hey, Citizens United and the McCuskey decision, money is speech and corporations are people. That's right, folks. Come on down. You could buy a U.S. politician. Be you a corporation here in the good old USA or a corporation overseas or a foreign power. You can buy a United States senator or a U.S. House representative, Democrat or Republican. Hell, why not both?
Nice company we keep. Luckily, the campaign had minimal impact and was sloppy in its execution. To no one's surprise, it still remains active on Elon's X. But this is only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the Israeli government's alleged interference. A joint investigation by The Guardian and the Israel-based magazines Plus 972 and Local Call reveals how Israel has run an almost decade-long secret war against the International Criminal Court. The country deployed its intelligence agencies to surveil, hack, pressure, smear, and allegedly threaten senior ICC staff in an effort to derail the court's inquiries and dissuade the ICC from filing war crimes charges against Israeli officials. Israeli intelligence captured the communications of numerous ICC officials, including the current chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, and his predecessor, Fatou Bensouda. Surveillance was ongoing in recent months, providing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with advanced knowledge of the prosecutor's intentions. To be clear, it is never a good time to be accused of conducting a shadow war against the ICC. But this news comes at a critical time. Netanyahu is preparing for the rare honor of being invited to address a joint meeting of the U.S. Congress.
He's spoken before Congress before. All right. And trust me on it. Netanyahu is coming here to make sure that his investment, his property, the politicians, that's right, you heard me, because AIPAC and other pro-Israeli lobby groups that are there in Washington, D.C. own our politicians, okay? And what all of you need to take away from is that this article, this story that the New York Times posted, which I'm surprised that they even did, it's revealing firsthand just how corrupt our system is. But this isn't anything new. These lobby groups have been doing this for years. For years. Better yet, for decades. This is nothing new. No one should be shocked like, oh my God, our politicians are being bought and influenced by a foreign power. A foreign agency is buying off politicians to tell voters and constituents to shut up. Just follow the plan. Whoever knew? It is real. It's always real.
Something the top 4 congressional leaders of both parties signed off on. The address could happen in the very near future. And while several House Democrats, as well as Senator Bernie Sanders, have vowed to skip Bibi's address, among the leaders welcoming the Israeli premier will be House Minority.
Hey, look, there's Republican Mike Johnson, Democrat Chucky Boy Schumer. There's Democrat House Representative and Minority Leader of the House, Hakeem Jeffries. And look, there's Turtle Boy Mitch McConnell, Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican. It's bipartisanship. Isn't that lovely? It almost brings a tear to your eye.
Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, one of the lawmakers targeted by Israel's influence campaign, as well as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who back in March called on Israel to hold new elections because Netanyahu had, quote, lost his way. Awkward. And that's tonight's readout.
Now, hold on. It gets better. More from BSDNC about how discussing Israel targeting Democrats using AI, fake social media accounts, and more. Look at that. Shout out again to Case Study QB, who's wrongly being censored. Please follow him on all of his social media. Good to see you again, Case Study QB.
We're learning from the New York Times that Israel's basically contracting out an influence campaign to target Democrats under the radar using AI, fake social media accounts, fake news websites. I mean, what's your reaction to that as someone who has had his own interaction with sort of Oppo research endeavors?
Yeah, you're a friend of mine, Alex. You may remember it came out about a year after the Obama administration that a group of former Mossad agents had been hired to spy on me, dig up dirt. We've seen these kinds of tactics before. I think what is striking about this one is the tactics that are being used are literally the exact same tactics that Russia uses, right? Fake.
Gotta have Russia. Israel, why you click, copy, and pasting Russia? Weren't you our friend?
Social media accounts, trying to drive the algorithm, using AI to kind of micro-target certain audiences, targeting Black members of Congress, right, as a constituency that you want to make sure is divided and maintain some support for Israel. When Russia is doing this kind of thing, the Democrats are very vocal in calling it what it is, which is foreign interference in our politics. This is exactly the same. It's the exact same playbook. And if we don't have antibodies to this, and one of those antibodies would be maybe not inviting the leader of the country that's doing that to address a joint session of Congress, it's going to keep happening.
Yeah, well, and I guess I also wonder, part of the reason it didn't really succeed, this effort, is because it was sort of ham-handed and not that convincing. The intelligence the AI used was not that sophisticated. But just in terms of the future and what we're looking at, in terms of rogue governments or even allies trying to meddle with a pretty frayed democratic system here in the United States, what are the implications?
Stop acting like this is new. We've been talking about this for years, especially on my platform. So many people in independent media have been talking about how corrupt our system is, how cheap our politicians can be bought. Like, the implication is this: the American people lose trust in the system. Voter turnout in local Chicago elections is at an all-time low. Because why? Many of our politicians are bought. But see, that's just talking about city politics here in my back of the yards, right? Nationwide, Americans are losing trust in the system. Why do you think so many American voters don't turn out to vote? Why do you think voter turnout, especially in the Democratic primaries, have been at an all-time low? In comparison to what we saw in 2016 and 2020, my goodness, I bet Democrats are secretly wishing and praying they could have the high voter turnout that they saw in 2016 and 2020. Only except no one's believing Biden's BS because everybody knows that these politicians don't represent them. So what is the incentive for fighting for a system that doesn't respect you, that doesn't care about you, and that is easily bought off by donors? So in turn, that you, the voter, are always going to be ignored.
I think what we see from a lot of governments, and on this one, I don't single out Israel. I think it's not just Israel and Russia. I think a lot of foreign governments, foreign interests do this, is they look for areas where there are divisions already in the United States, right? Issues around the Black Lives Matter movement, issues around the war in Gaza, issues around anything in which Americans are arguing with each other online. And they kind of come in and they either pour gasoline on that fire, as the Russians often do, or they try to put their thumb on the scale. They create a volume that kind of makes people think that these divisions are sharper than they appear, or that try to bias in the direction of one side of the argument, as Israel is probably trying to do in this case. It just goes to show that our information environment is so broken, and people are living in a space online that is absent objective reality. Why wouldn't all manner of people and interests, including foreign ones, kind of come in and try to exploit that? I think that the starker message here is that why can't Israel feel that it can make these arguments directly to members of Congress about what they're doing in Gaza? If you think you're winning the argument, if you're confident in what you're doing, you don't necessarily need to create a bunch of bots driven by AI to try to pressure people.
Once you're using bots, it says a lot about the merits of your argument. My friend Ben Rhodes, thank you for joining.
So does that mean the media is going to finally start questioning the Biden-Harris administration for continuing sending weapons and arms to Israel? Does that mean that the media is going to finally call out the Biden-Harris administration's failures for not even getting any kind of ceasefire? Is that what's going to happen now? Because it's abundantly clear. It's abundantly clear that lobby groups and foreign lobby groups are influencing our politicians. It's not Russia. It's not China. It's from one of our own allies. My goodness, with a friend like that, who needs an enemy, right? Targeting politicians, buying them off, making sure that they'll be obedient and subservient to you. So in case their constituents start yelling and protesting, all what they have to do is tell them to shut up, and shut up again. We don't have a democracy. We have an oligarchy. We have a system that doesn't represent the American people. We have a system that is designed to keep us in the dark. These politicians want to make sure that nobody challenges them. These politicians want to make sure that no one upsets the system as a whole. Because for one moment, if the American people truly do want change, we have to call them out for the hypocrites that they are, and we have to start building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C. The fact that so many of our politicians are owned should tell you this. No matter how November ends, it's going to be the lobby groups, the banks, the corporations, the hedge fund managers, the top 1% that will have the final say. Do you feel represented by your government? Do you feel like your politicians have your best interest at heart? If you still believe in that, tell me what it's like to believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Loch Ness Monster, and Bigfoot. Because unfortunately, the real truth is what Israel's doing now, what this group is doing now, is nothing new. It's always been like this. And unfortunately, it's going to continue on like this until the American people say no more.